It's West Ham versus Tottenham in the Premier League this weekend after the international break, game week 4. And I'm joined by a West Ham fan for the opposition preview. And the West Ham fan is Joe Davis. Joe, thank you very much for joining us. Talk to people a bit about who you are and what you do. And also, I hope you are very well.
I'm good, thank you. Hope you're as well. Hope you're good as well. I'm currently I'm studying journalism in Manchester. I'm looking to get into like the sports journalism space at the moment. I write for a a fan blog, I suppose. That's what you call it. Called the West Ham Way. Um, I'm just writing articles for them. I do a couple of things here or there, and obviously, as you can see, I do a couple of streams with other people as well. So I'm just kind of trying to make my name really. And yeah,
Good
that's
stuff.
all there is about me really.
That's all right. Thank you. Sounds good. Thank you very much, Joe, for joining us. This should be a good game this weekend. But if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. For listening on a podcast platform, please drop us a follow and a 5-star review. Joe, I want to start with reviewing the season so far. So let's focus on West Ham. So people haven't seen it. Your results have been Sunderland 3, West Ham 0 on the opening day of the Premier League season. West Ham 1, Chelsea 5. Then we went to the Carabao Cup and you lost 3-2 to Wolves. So it wasn't looking good, but then last time out before the international break, you beat Forest, I think quite surprisingly, 3-0 at the City Ground to get the first Premier League win, 3 points on the board, which means you're 16th in the Premier League. You now got those 3 points on the board from 3 games and have a -4 goal difference. So, Joe, what were your thoughts overall so far?
It was looking. I mean, at the start we were pretty bad, and it was very obvious what we needed to do. We needed to fix the midfield. We had a problem where we were starting Guido Rodriguez, who isn't really up to the pace. He's like 33 now, and he's more suited to La Liga. He's not fast at all, but he's a very good passer of the ball. But that's not really enough in a Premier League midfield. It was him, Ward-Prowse, and Paqueta in the middle, and Paqueta's obviously up to standard, but the other two are just a bit kind of like, Ward-Prowse has been there and done it, but he's looking a little bit past it now. So that was really quite bad, and we were just getting run through. It felt like, no matter who we were going to play in the Premier League, we were just going to get like ramsacked. And the first half against Sunderland, we were okay. The problem is that pre-season we looked quite good. So then it came to the actual season, everyone kind of had a bit of hope, and then it just like crashed and burned. Like the first half we looked okay. We'd had Hermansen had just come in. Made some good saves in that first half, and Juve as well, who looked excellent. But then, second half Sunderland, I think we on that day lost to the occasion rather than the team. I think if you put us in a setting where it's not their first game back in the Premier League at their home stadium, then it's a totally different scenario. And then, it was kind of like us against Forest almost. They scored 3 late goals, and it was we just couldn't cope with it. Cope with like the atmosphere at the stadium and everything like that. And then we played Chelsea the following week, and it showed that, quite frankly, we were actually really quite bad.
Started well.
We started well, yeah. Paqueta, amazing goal. But it's a moment of brilliance. We know he's capable of that, but how often can you rely on him to pull that out of the bag? It never happens, you know what I mean? And it's not a reflection on him. It's just, the fact that you can't just go, oh, yeah, part of our game plan is we're going to let Lucas Paqueta score a belter from 25 yards out. But then, we started well, conceded straight off the bat after that, which kind of was almost to be expected with West Ham. You don't really we'd go 1-0 up, and you're like, no, we don't really have the defensive capability to ever hold on to this, and we didn't. And then Fulkrug scored. That got disallowed. I think Tadibo was offside in that one.
It's very
And then
slight.
from there, we just completely lost our heads, and set pieces became a huge issue because one of the things Potter, I think, it kind of has to. It's still not really an issue we've massively solved. But like we're really lacking in height, and it showed. Even our goalkeeper is not the tallest, and we conceded. It was 2 or 3 corners in that game. I can't remember now. I just remember it kind of almost being like a blur. Oh, there's another goal. Do you know what I mean? Conceded a few corners. João Pedro got his 2 pence in. It was a mess, and from that point on, everyone was really, really, really unhappy. We looked okay at the end, but I think that's just more because he took their foot off the gas. And then Wolves away in the cup, we looked good again at the start. We conceded first, but it was not really like a reflection of how the game. It was a bit like, I mean, Wolves themselves haven't had a good season at all, and it was almost like the El Sacico almost. You know what I mean? Like they were horrible, we were horrible, but then eventually it kind of made almost quite a good game out of it, and we did go 2-1 up. It was 2 crosses, one from Walker Peters on his full debut, with an excellent cross, and then the other one from Barrett Bowen, and I think it was Souček and Paqueta that scored, and we made it quite far in. I think it was like the 84th minute. And then they brought on Strand Larsen, who at the time was rumoured to go to Newcastle, and he scored, and we just, again, folded in half, and it caused the massive, I don't know if you saw the thing with Bowen confronting the fans afterwards. It was a right mess. And then we played Forest that weekend, and all of a sudden it was just like, I don't really know how to explain it even now. I watched it. I think, in fairness, at that point we'd signed Matheus Fernandes in his debut, and he alone made a huge difference.
Yeah, we got you back.
Is it all right?
Yeah, it's all good. We lost you, but we got you back.
Good.
Yeah, you were just saying about
right. Yeah.
Fernandes.
Yeah, we just signed Matheus Fernandes. You what? Sorry.
You were saying it about signing Fernandes. So, Joe, you were saying about Fernandes,
right?
Before you cut.
Fernandes, yes, he made a huge difference. We were faster in midfield. That was also part of our problem, the fact we had no pace. And he was popping things about, really, and we looked quicker and sharper, and eventually it kind of ebbed and flowed the game a bit. There was a period where Forest looked like they were going to just kind of creep back in again, but we just absolutely, we brought Somerville on, and they couldn't cope with him. It was his first game back since injury, and came on, ran straight at their defence, got an assist for Bowen, who finished it quite like it was a tough finish. I think had that not gone in, it would have been a totally different scenario. But you can't really speak about that because it's happened. Then Somerville again, literally straight after, runs straight at Sangare, wins a penalty, most flat out penalty you've ever seen in your life. And Paqueta scores that, and he does a celebration, dismissing all the Aston Villa rumours. And then, Wilson, brilliant bit of movement, shrugs Murillo off, and Juve, with his classic cross, gets the assist, and we're 3-0 up. And honestly, it should have been 4. I don't know if you've seen, but there was a chance at the end where Bowen ran through literally their entire defence, could have finished it off, and Wilson took it off him. But, theoretically it should have been 4-0, and all of a sudden now we're kind of looking at a situation going into the game at the weekend where it's like, are we actually good, or was it just a moment of madness?
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, Joe. And I'm interested to get your thoughts, because an outsider point of view, because I've actually seen all of your games so far this season, even the Carabao Cup one, and I think you look actually okay. I don't think you look great, don't get me wrong, like, oh my goodness, West Ham look amazing, but I think you should have more points on the board, in my opinion, with the way you played. I think it's a case of you start well, but don't take your chances. you look actually okay going forward. And at times quite good. Like against Chelsea, that first, 20, 25 minutes, for me, you could have scored 2 or 3 goals. As you said, the second goal disallowed. Wolves, I thought you looked good going forward. But I think it's a case of teams against you are improving in the second half. And defensively, there seems like you've got a lot of problems. You mentioned set pieces. I noticed that. Balls in behind, I thought you struggled with as well. So I think getting that back four kind of sorted, what is your best back four, and making sure they're up and firing might be an important thing. So I'm interested to get your thoughts. So that's how I assess your season in terms of you have been great, but you should probably have, in my opinion, 4 or 5 points on the board if you deal with things like set pieces.
It's tough to judge because I completely agree with the set piece point. If you take that out of the equation, Chelsea game is a lot closer. We look like vulnerable regardless. Every time we can see the corner now, it's kind of like a bit on edge. Same with balls in behind. I don't think our defenders are really very good at coping with it, and I don't know why. Theoretically, Tadebo's gone from being one of the best defenders in League One to, can barely catch up with a Premier League striker. And Kilman's quick, and but his judgment kind of lapses sometimes. I think Chelsea, we deserve to lose outright anyway. We were so lost. We didn't deserve a point in that game at all. Sunderland. The thing with Sunderland was we did have some, as you say, we had some good chances. The one I remember in particular is Juve having one on the edge of the box and Dan Ballard blocking it on the line. It's like, I don't know, Sunderland again, though, because it was 3 goals, you do kind of look at it and go, we got outplayed in that second half. And, did we really do enough in the first half to completely nullify any, Sunderland's comeback parade? So I don't know. The thing is with us is when it's good, it looks okay. But when it's bad, it's really, really bad. And the bad definitely outweighs the good in our start of the season. It's obvious where we can improve, but I don't know. I think we'll push on from here. We've signed some midfielders now. We signed Igor on the final day. He's a big centre-back. I don't know how much he's actually going to play. But, if we need that option, we've got him. We've held on to Souček. Who's also another option if we need to fix that. It's tough to judge. To be honest, I'd say looking at it, it's pretty fair that we've only got 3 points out of 3 games because we were definitely second best in those first 2 games. And, we completely ramsacked Forest in that final 10 minutes the other week. And, I think we have a good opportunity to push on from that, and we have to build on it. It's annoying that the international break kind of came in the way, but our defense is the problem now, I think, because the midfield it's been fixed to an extent. We've got Fernandes, who gives us much needed pace. He's very dynamic. He's young. Same with Sungutu Magasa. I had to write an article on him. I've seen quite a bit of him. He looks very physical. He's going to give us more robustness in midfield. I'm not overly sure about his aerial ability. So I don't know if it gives us like a massive advantage from corners or anything. But he fixes the midfield problem. So we'll definitely be harder to play against from now on. But, our set piece is going to be a continued problem. We just don't know.
Thank you very much. And lastly, before we do move on to the game itself, what's the pressure looking like on your manager, Graham Potter? Has that a little bit of that been relieved with that win against Forest for the international break?
Yeah. I think, to be honest, the pressure was a bit kind of like a hyperbole anyway. It never really... People were like, oh, he's going to be the first one to go. And obviously now he definitely isn't, with Nuno going from Forest the other day. But I think David Sullivan, for all his flaws, he understands that you need to give a manager more time than people are normally willing to give them. Even I think there was high pressure on Potter. And I think if that carried on throughout the next few games, he would have been gone by late October, start of November. But it's that win, we actually really looked convincing. You know, it wasn't just a 1-0 smash and grab. Like, we completely outplayed Forest, who, you know, are in the Europa League this year. Like, they had, didn't they beat someone like 4 or 5-0 at the start of the season? Or have I imagined that? You know,
Brain's gone blank.
they've
Probably. I mean, I
good.
don't think Forest been that bad before that.
I think it
Not
was
sure.
Brentford they played and they scored. Maybe it was only
Oh
like
yeah,
3-0 or 4-1 or
yeah. I
something,
think you're
and they
right.
scored.
They did beat someone. Yeah, quite well.
But
Mm.
yeah, no, they're not bad. Like, I know
Yeah.
Nuno's just been sacked since, but that's more to do with his relationship with Marinakis, you know. And we completely outplayed them, and it shows that we have it in us. It's now about establishing that consistency and hoping that the new signings, you know, we're yet to see Igor and Magassa and see how that works out. And I think Callum Wilson has been a hit so far, which was a surprise. There was a lot of backlash when we signed him, but he's looked really, really good. And Somerville's back, which is another option for Potter. He played Somerville on his first game. We played Aston Villa away, and Somerville was excellent in that game, and he got a hamstring injury, and he's only just come back from that. That was his first game against Forest, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But yeah, the pressure's definitely massively been lifted. You know, there won't be any conversations this week about sacking Potter and nothing. So he's bought himself a bit of time.
Okay. And by the way, just to clear it up, just having a look now, Forest beat Brentford 3-1 at home at the start of the season, and it was a 1-1 draw to Palace before they played you.
It was only 3-1. I thought it was like 5-0 for some reason.
I think they went 3-0 up though. I think they were in control. Should have been more.
It was really
I remember.
quick, and I just remember looking at it thinking, yeah, that's going to be like 5-6-0.
Yeah, I think it could have been. I do remember seeing it on Match of the Day. But onto the game itself, Joe, I've got to ask: is this West Ham's cup final this week, or are you saving that energy for when you next play Millwall?
Yeah, obviously not. Obviously not a cup final. God knows when we'll next play Millwall, but nah, it's a bit of it's more exciting as a result of Forest. We like, especially considering you lost to Bournemouth last time out as well. And I watched that game, and to be honest with you, mate, Bournemouth completely outplayed you. So it will be interesting to see. I've seen a lot of stuff this week from Spurs fans about the fact that our game's gone to general sale and all sorts of stuff, and it's tough to look at. But I think we will turn up, and I think the fans will turn up. There's a lot of added tension this time because Kudus is back. That'll be interesting to see what reception he gets after the movie made. But yeah, I don't know. There's not as much anticipation as there normally would be, but I think when it actually comes to it, and like they realize kind of what situation we're in, then I think it will be a lot more fierce. But definitely, never will admit that it's a cup final though.
No, that's what I did expect you to thought I'd ask. Got another, I suppose, one of those difficult questions as well. Do you think West Ham fans hate Spurs more than they like their own team? I think maybe that thought of the question maybe comes in terms of West Ham at the moment really struggling, and a lot of fans like to take the focus away from their own club.
I wouldn't say they hate Spurs more than they love West Ham or anything like that. But I'd say to be honest, out of all of the teams in the Premier League, I know you lot have your focus on Arsenal, but considering, Millwall aren't anywhere to be seen, who else do we focus on, really? It's kind of, I'd say, when in terms of as far as rivalries within the Premier League go, I'd say you're probably, the ones we look at and go, like, this lot, we hate this lot the most out of everyone. Obviously, there's all the other London teams that we don't get along with. No one really likes Arsenal either, but it's not quite as like heavily anticipated as, that's more seen as like more to do with like Declan Rice. Do you know what I mean? And the fact that not many people really like Arsenal anyway. But Yeah, it's tough to. I can't really think of like a way around it other than the fact that Spurs are definitely the team we probably hate most within the Premier League. But if you brought Millwall up, then that completely goes out the window. But with regards to us, like there's nothing Spurs could ever do to kind of make you focus more heavily on them than anything to do with West Ham. Really, at the moment, West Ham is a bit of a mess. There's protests going on, and the reason the game on Saturday has gone to general sale is people don't want to buy tickets because there's protests against the ownership and things like that, and that's been going on for years and years and years, and it's tough to trying to like enjoy the thought of West Ham is tough under this ownership. Always has been. The time under David Moyes was the only time it ever really quietened down, and it almost like I don't know, like whenever we get worse, it does reflect on the ownership more, and when we're better, it kind of they don't really get much of their credit. David Sullivan across the transfer window had his moments, and I think that's what's kind of stemmed this thing. They tell us about financial issues, and our owners are very public with what they do. They'll go on Talk Sport, or Karen Brady will release an article or something like that, and the fans they're heavily opposed to it. And quite frankly, our ownership model and the way the clubs run is massively, really, really far behind a lot of other clubs, and it sets us back massively because it ruins our transfer market methodology. Scouting's a bit of like a small department. It's not really taken as seriously as most other clubs take it, and eventually, what we end up doing is spending huge wages on these players like Callum Wilson. As I said, he was a hit earlier, but when he came through the door, everyone was just a bit kind of like he's not even on high wages or anything, but you look at it and you just like that David Sullivan is doing one of his agent friends a favour there. It's not because Graham Potter wants Callum Wilson. I don't think many Premier League clubs would have looked at Callum Wilson and gone, yeah, that's the guy we want. He missed the entirety of last season pretty much with an injury. But because David Sullivan has got a mate who's an agent that represents Callum Wilson, that's what it is. Like, you can't look past it. It's not hidden or anything. And it really annoys people because it gets in the way of the structure and what the manager's trying to build and all of this. And it causes problems, and the fans don't, they hate the thought and the idea of West Ham when it's that way. And it, last season we were all massively disengaged by, West Ham in general because we weren't performing on the pitch and nothing was happening off it to kind of make things any better. So, it's a tough one to judge, but I still don't think in relation to Spurs anything really compares.
Again, appreciate your honesty. Tell you what though, what's the one Spurs player you take at West Ham if there is one, and what's the one that you secretly rate but it's hard to admit?
The one, I'd say the one I'd take at West Ham is Pape Sarr. I really rate him. The midfield engine, like I love that type of player. It's exactly what West Ham needed this whole time. As I was explaining earlier, I think he'd be hugely beneficial to any team that he walked into. I really like him. The one that I secretly rate, but it's hard to admit. Probably Romero.
Okay,
I think he's very good, but his character makes him hard to like. Do you know what I mean? The two that mainly come to mind there are him. Richarlison's a bit like hit and miss. I wouldn't really say I rate him as much as I rate Romero, but I'd say Romero's in that category.
Very, very good shout. I totally agree with you on that one. Any past memories, can be good, can be bad, of playing Spurs that you'd like to share?
The one I always go back to when I think of when we're playing Spurs, there's, we've had our moments where we've beaten you and whatever, but the one that always gets me was during lockdown when we had Jesse Lingard. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
We beat you was it 2-1? I
I
think.
think so. Yeah,
Um,
your stadium.
and that was a really like intense game. I remember because we were both going for top four, I think. Um, and that was a huge relief to win that game. Lingard obviously got his goal, and then the only other proper memory I have of that is Gareth Bale taking a shot and Declan Rice clearing it off the line. It was like that game was the actual game itself was one of the most stressful experiences I've ever had. That was our first year proper fighting for Europe for a few years. I think Mourinho was your manager at the time. Tough to like play against, and like it was a real struggle to get through that game. But that was probably my favorite win against you lot. Favorite, if I'm going through different aspects now, but if I had to think of like a goal in particular, is probably, you'll remember it. You were at Wembley, Obiang, obviously.
Yeah.
That absolute belter. I think Son scored a belter in the same game, but that goal cannot be beaten. West Ham fans still talk about that to this day. And you can ask most people and they'll remember it. Obiang himself isn't really a particularly remembered player, but that goal was ridiculous.
For a centre back as well.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And yeah, that was I'd say that's all I can really think of. We've had our moments. I'm forgetting Lanzini. The 3-3 in the last
I thought you were
minute.
going to
That
say
was
that
also
as
not.
a game.
Yeah,
It went
no,
3-0 up.
I've literally just remembered. It's come to my head. Yeah, that one. It's a shame we didn't win that game because it was only a draw in the end. But that was ridiculous. That
What was
again,
it though?
super stressful.
3-0, 82 minutes at our stadium, something like that.
Yeah.
82.
And we scored three in the last. Well, it was an own goal, wasn't it? Davinson Sanchez. Um,
Yeah.
and then obviously Lanzini in the last minute. I think Balbuena scored the other one.
Yeah, to make it
Um,
3-2.
and yeah, that goal again never be forgotten. Ridiculous goal, 95th minute or whatever it was. Like, it doesn't get much better than that. The only regret about that one is that there was no fans in the stadium, because
Yeah.
we always say, could you imagine if fans were there during that? You'd go absolutely mental. But we've had our few, especially over lockdown. But I'd say, yeah, Obiang, Lanzini, and the Lingard game was probably my favourite ones.
Good shouts, thank you. And on to the actual game this weekend itself. How do you feel about it? Are you confident? Are you nervous or not so confident?
I'm a bit in the middle because we were so good last time out and you were quite bad. So I don't know. I'm more confident than I would have been 3 weeks ago. A lot more confident. Depends what he does with his lineup. Does he throw Magassa straight in? Fernandez will definitely give us a different sort of outlook on it. How's Kudus going to be? Is he going to, because Juve, as good as Juve is, his defensive kind of prowess is you're still not overly sure on it. And obviously Kudus, one of the best dribblers in the league. You can't really deny that. Is he going to be able to capitalize on that? I can't call it. I really can't, because we're not going to be as good as Bournemouth were. Put it that way. I don't think we've got quite the intensity for that yet. But it's a tough one to judge. I think we've got an advantage that it's at the London Stadium this time out, and we'll be confident. And thankfully we've got through the international break scotch-free. No injuries, nothing like that. Honestly, I cannot tell you how I feel about it. It's so tough to judge. Like, I'm definitely more excited than I was, but I'm still skeptical with West Ham. You just don't know.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, I can share that with Tottenham as well. Very unpredictable at the best of times. So hopefully Frank will change that. You speak about Kudus, like, it'll be interesting to see what atmosphere and kind of response he gets. How do you think it will go, though, if you had to predict him? I assume anyway that he'd get quite a bit of stick.
yeah, first touch he'll get booed. All of this. Um, I don't know how much it will carry on throughout the course of the game. If he gets subbed off, there'll be a massive cheer. All of this. He's not going to get a good reception at all. There's no two ways about it, really. The way the move came about, the way, it's a silly thing to get rattled over, but it's what football fans do. The announcement video, I only wanted Spurs or whatever it was. It's not going to go down well. And like I say, you're probably the team that we hate most in the Premier League. So the fact that he's gone there in general was never going to have a good reaction. The one thing I'll compare it to kind of give sort of a better idea is that even Declan Rice, executed a move perfectly, didn't force it, didn't do anything. He let the clubs negotiate. Sullivan got the price he wanted. Rice went to Arsenal, who at the end of the day are a bigger and better club than us at the moment. And he still got booed when he came back. Largely the reception for him was decent, and now he doesn't, get anything because it's been a couple of years and everything's fine. But, even when he first went, got booed. So Kudus, the reaction will be at least 2 times worse, if not 10 times. I just don't see it being a great afternoon for him, to be honest.
No, that's fair enough. Any Spurs players you fear in this game? You speak obviously you like Star, but in terms of ones that in this game that can cause West Ham the most problems.
I'd probably say I'm interested to see how Xavi Simons turns out. There's the level of unpredictability with him. He's showed against Premier League players before that he can be very good, and we're not very good at like adapting to stuff that we don't really know very much about, and Simons will be that. Same with, I don't know, you'll know better than me if Kolo Muani's gonna get a look in at the weekend.
Should do.
If he comes on again, we don't really know what we're dealing with, and our defense has been a bit shaky, so he could cause us problems. I think it's tough to judge, really. I think if we have an issue like in the wide areas, do you know what I mean? Kind of defensively, especially down on our left-hand side. Juve is kind of there on his own. If he starts Somerville, I'm not entirely sure if he will, but if he does, then we've got a bit of a better option down that left-hand side at the weekend. But if not, then, is it Pedro Porro playing there, or will it be Spence will be on the left, won't he?
Probably be Spence left back, Porro right back, but Udogie is back, so we have got that option.
Yeah. So, whoever's down that right-hand side really combined with Kudus, I think Kudus could cause us problems. But at the end of the day, the players know Kudus better than anyone on that team. So who knows? It's a really tough one to judge who actually hurts us. But I think the level of unpredictability kind of gives Simons and Kolo Muani a bit of an advantage. And I think your robustness in midfield, as much as we've, signed to kind of make that up, it's much more physically capable than us. And, I've already said I rate Sarr. I think he'll cause us problems. Palhinha's in there now, isn't he? Someone we'd looked at before. He's a good player. It's tough to tell. But then even you can go as far as the centre-backs from set pieces again. Do you know what I mean? I can see a Romero header from a corner or something like that. So, I don't know. It's probably either Simons or one of the centre-backs from a set piece, or even just, the midfielders, just because they're more physical.
Fair enough, thank you. And to flip the question, who can hurt my side Spurs the most from you? I mean, Bowen springs to mind.
Yeah, he's the obvious one. Bowen, you'd always got to say Bowen. He's one of the best wingers in the league. He's the danger man. Without a doubt, our best player, and will be throughout the season. Lucas Paqueta's in good form. Scored a few goals recently. Scored for Brazil over the international break. He's definitely a danger man. Fernandes, I think, is very dynamic. He'll be he'll be the quickest midfielder on the pitch. It's just about whether he can buy the space and the time. I think Juve, as much as he's kind of a bit questionable defensively, he's always going to cause you a problem on the attack. And I think if Callum Wilson starts, that will be an interesting proposition for you, because as good as your defense is, he's really in form at the moment, and him and Juve are a great combination. So it's probably that front three of Paqueta, Wilson, and Bowen, and then Juve. Walker Peters is in very good form as well, but I don't think he's much of like a threat to the opposition. He's just like a really reliable figure. Do you know what I mean? Who's kind of, he's going to do the job, which is why our right-hand side is a bit less of a vulnerability than our left-hand side. But again, Spurs fans know Walker Peters very well, so it's always tough to judge this sort of thing. But Bowen and Paqueta are definitely probably the two best at the moment in the best form, and then Fernandes on his debut, on his home debut, should I say, looks very good.
Okay, so some potential things and players to watch, concerns for Spurs. Can I ask you though? You mentioned like players like Wilson and Somerville. Part of me thinks, and I want your opinion on this because tell me if I'm absolutely wrong. But I look at players like that and think not necessarily maybe them, but some players that, as you know, are very good impact players, very good off the bench. But when they start, they don't have quite the same impact, even if they play well, as they would off the bench. And I look at someone like Somerville, and again, I could be wrong, and I think you're a really explosive player off the bench that can change a game. I think he's done that against Nottingham Forest, but can he do that from the start? And similar with Wilson as well. I see kind of 15, 20 minutes at the end coming on, being a real nuisance to a tiring back line. But do you think both those players can still have that kind of impact they did for the likes against, they did against Forest and other games? Can they do that from the start?
You're right, particularly with Somerville. There's not really many games I can think of that Somerville has started in where he's been, like the best player throughout the whole game, but then he's not really had much of an opportunity at West Ham. Last year, he was injured for half the season, and in the games leading up to that, he had a brilliant. I can't remember if he started or was subbed on in that game, but he scored in the last minute against Man United to win the game for us at 2-1.
Yes.
The Somerville, I do agree with you thinking about it. I'm not entirely sure he'll start anyway, because he's still off the back of a long-term injury. And even if it has been 2 weeks since that game against Forest, still, is he in a position to be fully integrated into the team? He deserves a spot and deserves to start, but I don't think he'll... I'm not overly sure he will, and I think Potter will have him as an impact option again. Wilson is an interesting one, but that's more because of in comparison of who he's up against. Fulkrug has not had a good start to the season at all. There was a lot of hype around him, and a lot, it's a new season for him. He's shown he can be good. We've all watched him in the Euros, and he was really, really good for Germany, and he's always good for Dortmund as well. But he's not had a good season, and I think Wilson now has earned his spot. And Wilson has shown in the years over his career, I don't know about now, it's been a while. He missed most of last season, and he never really started for Newcastle much anyway, ever since they introduced Isak. So I don't know. I think Wilson we get to see. He's not actually started a game for us. So from a West Ham perspective, we just don't know. But I think overall, considering his suitability to the league and everything like that, he's much more likely to, be a better option for us pretty much from the start than Fulkrug ever was. And there's also rumours that Fulkrug has an injury anyway, so we'll see on that one. I think Wilson has it in him to have an impact across the course of a full 90. But Somerville, I know what you mean. He's really quick, really direct. It's tough if you're a tired defender. That he's one of the last people you want coming up against you. So yeah, you're right on Somerville. Wilson, it's still the questions have to be asked.
Be interesting to see. Thank you for that answer. Just a sudden thought that I had. But you speak about players that could start, should start. What is your predicted though West Ham start 11? If you had to talk me through 1 to 11 that you think the manager will go with in Potter.
So I think Mads Hermansen will be in goal. No doubts about that. There's no one really. Hermansen's had a bit of an off start, but we got a clean sheet in the last game. He deserves to keep his place. Same goes for the whole of the defence, really. Walker Peters started over Wan-Bissaka last time out, and that proved to be a good option. For some reason, Wan-Bissaka's in a bit of a questionable run of form. He played for Congo, I think it was yesterday, and wasn't great in that game, according to Congolese fans. I didn't actually watch the game myself, but I never really saw anything good about him. So Walker Peters, I think, will start a right back. Then it's Mavropanos, who's earned his place back. Looked really good against Forest in his first start back, and looked good when he came on against Wolves in the Cup as well. Kilman alongside him, there's not really much of a story there. We don't, Igor's just come in, but he's not going to start straight away at left centre back. Then Juve at left back had a really good season. No complaints with him. Got the second most assists in the league behind Grealish. No questions with him at all. Excellent. Midfield is the really questionable one because we've got the question of Magassa, who has only just signed for us but is yet to play a minute in the Premier League, obviously. Does Potter trust him from the start? I think he will, and I think Magassa should start just because we're going to need that physicality in the midfield, and he is the only one we've got that really brings it against, the likes of Sarr and everyone else you've got. So I think it will be Magassa and then Mateus Fernandes. No questions asked with him. Excellent debut, deserves to keep his place. Lucas Paqueta in good form. Came off the back again there was more news about his spot fixing case came out the other week, and everyone's now fully in agreement that the FA's case was just a complete mess. Everything's out there now for him. He's free reign. He's in excellent form. Deserves to start. No questions asked. Then it becomes a question of, do you go with Somerville or do you stick with a back five, which obviously takes you back to the defence? I think he'll stick to a back four because that worked last time out. The thing is, he played, it was almost like a 4-4-2, but like a diamond midfield kind of against Forest, and Mateus Fernandes and Paqueta were kind of floating out to the left a bit. But I think we kind of needed more of a concentrated midfield because we didn't have a Magassa. So I think what he'll do is he'll then go with a front three. And I think Wilson will earn his spot in the 11. Obviously, Bowen starts, no questions asked. Everyone knows that. But when it comes to the left-hand side, I mean, it's tough because the only out-and-out left wingers we've really got are Somerville and Luis Guilherme, who's only 18. Just broke his collarbone, is only just back from that. There's no way he starts realistically. I can see Somerville starting, given the impact he had. But if not, then I think either Ward-Prowse or Souček go into the midfield, and you have that kind of midfield four again. And you rely on the likes of Juve to give you kind of the pace on the flank. And let the midfield kind of rotate itself. If I had to put, had to make a choice, I think he goes for that four midfield. So I think Souček will start, and it will be Wilson and Bowen up front. But there is absolutely that possibility that Somerville is out there on the left, and Potter isn't afraid to change a lineup. So we'll have to see.
Thank you very much for that one, Joe. What would a win mean for West Ham? Is it a case of course, beating Tottenham means a lot, but in all seriousness, is it like that confidence booster, back-to-back victories, the international break in between, and, move your way up the table? I just see this as a big opportunity for West Ham in front of their fans to all of a sudden get their season back on track. So that Forest was a confidence booster, but doesn't mean you're necessarily back on track, does it?
No, you're bang on. I think, that a win means that, it's kind of like proving to ourselves that we are actually as good as we were against Forest. Do you know what I mean? We caught you at a good time with that loss to Bournemouth. If we'd played you after you'd just beaten Man City, then it would have been a totally different conversation. Or even that 3-0 win against Burnley. I know it's Burnley, but you looked excellent in that game. It's a massive, massive confidence booster, as you say, if we beat you at the weekend. I don't know where it pushes us up to in the league. Obviously, that depends on other results as well. But it is
Probably
about
far.
proving. Yeah, it is about proving to ourselves that, we are actually as good as we were in that last 10 minutes against Forest, and that there is a bright future ahead. I can't actually think of what our games are after Tottenham. I think we've got Brentford at some point, which is, again, a winnable game. We kind of need it as a Kickstarter, really, and it would be a huge confidence boost, and it totally changes the outlook of the entire season. You've gone from 2 really bad losses where, relegation's looming and the manager's going to get sacked, and then all of a sudden you're looking at, you've beaten a Europa League team and you've beaten the Europa League winners who are now playing in the Champions League. It'd be interesting to see what actually happens, but it feels kind of vital to, again, also pick up and gain that momentum again, considering there was an international break after our last win. If this had come the following weekend after the game against Forest, there is almost added confidence because of that. But because there's been a 2-week break and the players have been away with their national teams, and you've kind of got to then regroup again. So it's about gaining momentum, because we're very, very, susceptible to having an opportunity to build on something and then just crashing it down straight away. So, we need that momentum, and it's actually a very crucial game in the course of our season, or the start of our season anyway.
I've got your games here. I've just brought them up because I wasn't sure for myself either. Do you want to know the games you've got from now till the international break? Obviously, not long, is it, until another break?
Yeah, no, go on.
So you've got obviously us on the Saturday. Then you've got, let's look in here, Crystal Palace at home on the Saturday. Then you've got Everton away at the new stadium. And then you've got Arsenal away, which takes you to the international break. So that's us, say Tottenham at home, Palace at home, Everton away, Arsenal away.
I don't know where I've got Brentford from then.
Brentford's 20th of October. That's not too far away.
Oh, right, yeah. It's because I will have had like an email from the club about it or something, asking me to buy tickets. But it's a set of tough games, and you need good momentum going into that. It's tough because Palace at the moment is such a tough fixture. They've got SARS out with an injury, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with Gay here. I don't think he'll cause a problem at all for them, but there's a bit of a shaky one with Palace. They've just beaten Villa 3-0, but Villa don't actually look very good themselves. So if we could get a good bit of momentum going into that would be really good. Everton away again. I think that one's on a Monday night. It's they're in such a good place right now. Their front four is just firing. I wouldn't say we're the favourites in that one. So again, it's almost similar to Palace in the sense that you need good momentum going into it. Otherwise, they will just hit you. The thing with them is they've got a Merseyside derby, I think, at a similar time. Will they be looking at that more than they're looking at us? You just don't know. But we're not the favourites in that situation. And then obviously Arsenal, we're definitely not the favourites for that one. So if we don't win at the weekend, it could look very bleak again very quickly. Because I wouldn't say we're the favourites in any of those games, regardless of the win against Forest. We do need sort of a momentum shift to kind of put us in that competitive frame in that game and make it tough for them. And at the moment, if we lose to Spurs, I don't see us making, not if we lose to Spurs, but if we don't pick up on the high of Forest, then I don't think we'll get much out of those 3 games either.
They do look tough for you. But going back to this game, can I get your honest score prediction and also who you think's going to score?
I'm going to be biased and I'm going to go 2-1 West Ham. I'm going to say that Bowen will score, and I think Wilson again. As for Spurs, I think I'm going to go with, it would be so West Ham for Kudus to score. First Spurs goal, I can see it a mile off.
Yeah. I know what you mean. That does seem kind of written in the stars, one of those moments. But if I said to you now, Joe, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Would you take a draw? If I said to you now, here's a point, take that, move into the next game, would you take it or not?
It always, for me, depends on the performance. But if we played well and drew, then I'd be okay with that.
Right.
Obviously, if we didn't play well and we drew, then, buzzing. We're sweet. I'd absolutely take a draw in that scenario. But I don't think... if we play as well as we do against Forest, I would not be happy with a draw at all.
Fair enough. It's very difficult to say, isn't it?
Yes, completely performance dependent, and it's better off going in hindsight on that one. But I understand your question. It's a tough one to judge.
It's very tough. That's why I asked. No, that's absolutely fine. So before we get to some end of season predictions to wrap up, I want to ask you about kind of favourite memories supporting West Ham and a bit about you as a West Ham supporter. So firstly, we spoke about memories in terms of Tottenham, but what is your earliest or favourite memory supporting West Ham? Like, it's all together, like, could be any game.
So my earliest West Ham memory was actually when we won the playoff final to come back to the Premier League. I was born in 2004. I'm 21, and so we came up in 2012, I think it was. So naturally, I would have been how old then? Like 8 years old. I was kind of growing up. I had like more of a focus on international football. My earliest footballing memory is the 2010 World Cup. I remember, Frank Lampard hitting the crossbar, the ball going in and it not being given. I remember Shabalala's goal for South Africa, all of that sort of stuff. But West Ham wise, I didn't really properly get into that until we won the playoff final. I remember that Vazte goal last minute, not last minute, it was like the 86th, but it kind of guaranteed the promotion to the Premier League. And then I don't really have much memories of the Premier League after that, but then it kind of re-sparked when Dimitri Payet came across. I have good memories of the year before that. We had Enner Valencia and Diafra Sakho up front. They were a brilliant duo in 2014-15. And we just signed Aaron Cresswell as well, who looked like a good signing and all sorts of things. But then, the playoff final was probably my first memory. And then actually the first game I ever went to was in 2013, the year after. We played West Brom, and I think we beat them 3-1. I think Mo Diame scored in that game. I really liked Diame as a kid for some reason. And then, it was kind of, as a kid, it's a bit hit or miss. Then I fully remember properly getting really, really into West Ham when Dimitri Payet came. I used to watch West Ham and keep up to date with West Ham, but I was never really as invested in it. Do you know what I mean? There's being a fan of a club, and then there's being totally invested in everything that happens around it. And Dimitri Payet was the one that completely brought that about. We were flying. We came 7th in the league that year, and he got nominated for the Ballon d'Or. He's to this day the best player I've seen at West Ham. And we've seen Declan Rice go through. And then from that point on, I got a season ticket in 2017 after we played Juventus in the official opening game at the London Stadium. I'd watched us play against Dybala was flying high at that point. I think Pogba was on the verge of a move to United at that time, so I didn't get to see him. But it was watching West Ham against these players was like a completely foreign concept. We got into Europe the following year through Payet. Obviously, Payet was excellent. As I say, best player I watched, got nominated for the Ballon d'Or. Everyone knows how good he is or was. And then we didn't manage to get through the qualifiers for the Europa League. We lost to Astra Giurgiu. Some might have seen the clip of Dom from West Ham Fan TV about Astra Gugu. At that point, we became very bad straight after that. Payet left. We'd signed a load of just rubbish to replace him. And then kind of hope sort of sparked up again with Marko Arnautovic, who again was of all time one of my favourite West Ham players. Just like, you hated coming up against Arnautovic. Like, he was massive. He has an attitude like Richarlison. That's the only way I can really describe him. Yeah. And like, favourite type of striker, just strong, really quick, scored a good, I think the best he got in a season was like 12 for us. And I had a season ticket throughout all of that, but we were never really any good. And then Pellegrini came in. We signed Felipe Anderson, who was this really exciting Brazilian winger that we'd signed at the time for like 40 million. He was our record signing. We signed Seb Haller, the striker. Things were more exciting then. And Felipe Anderson, one of my favourite memories again, is the best goal I've seen live. I've missed a few good ones at London Stadium for whatever reason, but one of the best goals I've seen was, I don't expect you to remember this at all, but he scored this beautiful curler against Crystal Palace. We beat them, I think it was 3-2 that day, 3-1. And then it went downhill.
I do remember. They had Gaeta in goal, I think.
Yeah. That was another high point for me as a West Ham fan. We weren't even that great that season. I think we came 10th. But it was Anderson and Arnautovic up front that was like the excitement of it. And Declan Rice was also breaking through that year. That was his first like established season. He was only 19. And then it went downhill again in Pellegrini's second season. Moyes came in, completely saved the ship. And then any West Ham fan in recent times will tell you that 4-year period that Moyes was here was the best they've seen and probably will see for a very, very long time at West Ham. We signed Lingard, who was just like a complete revelation for the 6 months he was with us. If we'd signed him permanently, who knows where we'd have been, but we came 3 points off the Champions League that year. It was just completely unheard of. We'd finished 16th the year before. It was like the most dramatic improvement we've seen. And then, winning the Conference League has to be the all-time favourite memory. I don't see how you top that, winning a trophy.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen at West Ham. Hadn't won one for 43 years beforehand. I just remember that night I was with my dad. Like, I remember exactly, where I was, what I was doing, watching that Bowen goal go in. Like, that was the pinnacle of that point in time, and then we just got worse from that point onwards. And here we are now. We to be fair, we were in the Europa League the next year, obviously, as a result of winning it, and we had a brilliant game against Bayer Leverkusen. We lost, but they were obviously invincible at that point, and we went toe to toe with them for a good 80 minutes, especially in the second leg. But they ended up being too good for us anyway, as they were for everyone other than Atalanta, evidently. But that the Conference League has to be, and just like the Europa League nights, and beating the likes of Sevilla, crazy experience that was. But yeah, favourite all-time memory. Just you can't really beat winning the Conference League. Some frown on it, but honestly, it's the greatest thing that's happened to this club in the last however long.
I must admit, I occasionally take the mick of West Ham as West Ham fans will take the mick of Spurs, and I have quite a lot of banter with West Ham connections and social media threads, etc. But I will admit, the time you won the Conference League, I'm not one of them that's going to go, this 10-point trophy. It's a trophy. It's you have every right to celebrate it, and when you haven't won, as you said, would you say 43 years? It's an awfully long time. I think you deserve to enjoy that and celebrate it. It doesn't matter the size of it, whether it be the third biggest European trophy. It's a major trophy. It's there for a reason, and I see it as a big thing. I think David Moyes done excellent. Do you think? I tell you what, I had a question in here. Do you think that David Moyes was underappreciated at the time? Now you look back, it's always hard, isn't it, to appreciate what you have until you don't have it anymore.
Depends who you ask, but from my perspective, I love the guy, wanted him to stay. I didn't, a lot questioned his style of play, which at the end of the day, it hasn't got any better, and it wasn't going to get any better. At the time, the season where everyone seemed to kind of collectively appreciate everything that was going on was from the moment Jesse Lingard signed to the end of the 21-22 season. That was the year that we beat Sevilla in the Europa League, that we beat Lyon. We lost to Frankfurt in the end in the semi-finals, and I think had we beaten them, we'd have won the entire thing. We were this close to a Europa League title. It was West Ham. That's ridiculous. And no one, for a long time, not even, as much as I have faith in Graham Potter, I don't think he's going to get close to that. And I don't see a manager who can really get close to that in this situation with our ownership and everything else that goes on around the club. And then it kind of hit a point where people get almost bored of the success of it. The funniest thing about it is the year he left, we actually had our greatest start to a Premier League season ever. We were sixth in the league at this point. It wasn't in terms of the actual league table, it wasn't the most insane achievement. It wasn't like we were, first in the league at Christmas or anything, but we were sixth at Christmas. And at that point, that was, it would have been a Europa League spot. It was, we were flying. We'd just beaten Arsenal 2-0 at the Emirates, Mavropanos header. And then, we got injuries and all of these sort of things contributed to it, and we didn't really make up for it. In the January window that year, we signed Calvin Phillips, who was just he wasn't good at all, realistically. And he didn't solve any of our problems. All of our important players got injured. Declan Rice had just left, but we were still doing what we were doing, and then it went downhill from there. And the play style, when it's good, it works amazingly. It's so entertaining, but when it's bad, it's really bad, and people couldn't see past that. And if you ask anyone, anyone now about who, whether they, what's the word, appreciated it properly at that point, it was never really they'll always go back to that last 6 months. But I think at the time, I still would have said that he was massively underappreciated. And I think had you given him that transfer window, he would have worked wonders for us again. And he's doing it at Everton now.
Exactly that. Last few questions for you then. Firstly, who's your all-time favourite West Ham player and why?
Oof.
It's tough.
Probably, honestly, Jarrod Bowen.
Okay.
He scored that goal in the final. There's a few that run it close. Arnautovic is up there, as I said earlier. Payet, obviously. Bowen's an obvious, out there, mainstream one. If I had to go for, I can't really look past Bowen. He's done everything for us, and he's loyal to West Ham and everything like that. So, yeah, it has to be Bowen, really.
Okay. And what about all-time favourite West Ham manager? Would it be David Moyes?
Yeah. In my lifetime, there's no one that's come. Bilic came close, and Bilic was excellent for us. But when it got bad with him, it was bad for a long time, and it was really, really quite bad. And Bilic never, he got us into Europe, and he brought us the best player we've seen across the last couple of decades, but Moyes like won the trophy. We had back-to-back seasons in Europe. Has to be him, really. I can't think of anyone else that
Okay.
really comes close.
No, it's a good shout. Thank you very much. And lastly, to end the season predictions, let's start with my club, Spurs. Where do you think they will finish in the Premier League? If you had to give your honest thoughts.
I think the last time we did this, I think I said for you like fourth or fifth.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I'd still say about the same. Depends on how your new signings do. I think Simmons is really, if he's good, he's going to be like revelatory. And I think if Kolo Muani gets hit, I'm not overly convinced on Kolo Muani, if I'm honest with you. But that's just my opinion, and it means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. But you've still got that kind of the base that Thomas Frank had anyway, and you've shown that you can perform really well. And compared to most of the other teams in the league, I'd say fourth or fifth is about right. I think the top two is pretty locked in to be Arsenal and Liverpool again. So that leaves everything else after that. It depends on how good a Newcastle are going to be without Isak, how good a City going to improve, a host of different things. It's between you and City and Newcastle for those spaces. I feel like someone else could come in that maybe I'm forgetting about, but
Chelsea maybe.
Chelsea. Yeah, I'd say Chelsea are probably going to get to. I know I was forgetting someone. Chelsea probably going to be up there as well. So I'd say about fourth or fifth, one of those two.
Yeah, it's fair. I think I'd take that. Absolutely. What about West Ham?
Probably like from the 10th to like 13th region.
Would you be happy with that?
Considering the expectations at the start of the season, absolutely. If we got top 10, it would be brilliant. We came 14th last year and we were really quite bad. Lopetegui had literally no style of play, and Potter couldn't really pick up on that. It was an impossible task. Yeah, 10th to 13th. If I had to guess, like 12th, but maybe that's reserved for Crystal Palace. So I'll go with like 13th, just to be a bit on the pessimistic side.
I think that'll still be a decent season for you. So thank you very much for joining me today. Really enjoyed this discussion. Where can people follow you across social media?
So at WHU Joe on Twitter is the main one, always will be. I don't really have much else going at the moment. WHU Joe on Twitter, that's where you're going to find me. You can speak to me on there, look at the stuff I'm posting. That is about it, really.
Lovely stuff. Thank you. And guys, make sure to follow Joe. You know who I am, Harry Scarfe. Please follow me at Harry Scarfe32 across all socials. If you're listening on YouTube, like, subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please do drop us a follow and a 5-star review. Let us know as well where you're listening from. Enjoy the game this weekend, and a massive come on, you Spurs.